visions. Was it these gods that Terence McKenna encountered in his visions in the jungle?
Bob McCransky claims that you can have a dream which is prompted by the Bolontiku, which is the 9 Maya gods of the underworld, and that can be distinguished from a normal dream by the presence of a silent witness in the background, and that it turns out that this person is actually directing the progress of the whole dream. And he turns out to be one of these 9 gods who is revealing information in that dream. I did email Bob McCransky, and he confirmed to me they had what he called a kind of psychedelic experience while standing in front of the 9 altars, that is the altars to the 9 gods of the underworld at Tikal. And in that experience he realized that there were 5 male and 4 female deities, and that corresponds exactly to the combination that we have in the gods, the Ennead, the 9 gods of ancient Egypt.
Now, unfortunately, once again, we know very little about these Bolontiku, but the cult of the 9 Mayan deities has fallen into neglect within the Mayan themselves. But what we do know is that one site, known as Tikal, was considered to be the sacred home of these Bolontiku, these 9 deities. And in fact, in Tikal there is a small pyramid, and in front of this pyramid there is a stela, and it's on this stela where you will see depictions of these 9 deities who are supposed to return.
The Bolontiku, also known as the god of 9 steps, or 9-foot tree, nine dog tree, jaguar foot tree. These gods were present at the last creation. They were also present when the Spanish arrived, according to the texts. And if they're the same as the 9 Bolontiku, the underworld gods, those gods also were present at the last creation, and they defeated the 13 heaven gods on that occasion.
It's not the first time that I've actually come across the 9. About a decade ago, I was doing research into what would become the Stargate conspiracy, and in that book I actually tracked down, together with Clive Prince and Lynn Picknett, quite a new age phenomenon which was called the 9 as well, and we traced its origins back to 1952 and the likes of Andrija Puharic. And this was a group in New York City who were channeling entities known as the 9. And Puharic was a guy who worked for the CIA, who was involved with the remote viewing experiment, and it was he who actually brought Uri Geller from Israel to America for him to be experimented on by the CIA and to find out what was happening. All of the 9 phenomena were happening in the background of this thing. It was Puharic who was using the 9 as a private enterprise, so to speak. And not only did we find evidence of it in 1952 in New York or around Geller in the 1970s, it's also known that in the 1950s a similar experiment was going on, this time involving France and specifically Neo-Templars. And these people were taking on the guises of the 9 founding members of the Templar Order, and each one in the seance identified himself with one of these 9 founding members. 9 has been a very important number, and it's not just linked to the Mayans, but it's also linked to ancient Egypt, which is where Puharic got his information from, but it's also linked with more modern esoteric trends, specifically involving the Knights Templar.
For an understanding of how 2012 relates to the Maya calendar, we should refer to the seminal work of John Major Jenkins, who wrote a book called Maya Cosmogenesis 2012. So Jenkins shows that the site of Itzapa which is a site where it's now thought that the Olmecs probably developed the calendar. On those inscriptions there are stories, pictorial stories from the Popol Vuh myth. This is a myth that comes from Quiché Maya, but it's now pretty well accepted by archaeologists that this goes way back into history and has formed a lot of the way of thinking of the Maya. Well, on these pictures, it's shown scenes from the Popol Vuh where the two hero twins descend into the underworld to resurrect their father, who is a solar deity. And for example, there is a depiction of the solar deity coming out of the mouth of the jaguar toad, and that represents the mouth of the toad, and also sometimes the snake or the alligator represents what we now call the dark rift, the fat bulge in the Milky Way where there's a dark area of interstellar dust clouds. That to the Maya was Xibalba, the area where their shamans travelled to bring back knowledge from the ancestors. Well, that was seen as the mouth of one of these reptiles, and the god coming out of the mouth represents the winter solstice sun eclipsing the galactic centre area, which is on the galactic equator, and the cross that's shown underneath that represents the crossing of the ecliptic, the path of the sun, and the actual galactic equator.
By the early 1990s, Jenkins and McKenna became more and more convinced that the end date of the Mayan 13 Baktun cycle was linked with the conjunction of the Sun with the intersection of the ecliptic and the plane of the Milky Way. Such an alignment is a major astronomical event. One can only stand in admiration that the Maya were aware of this, centuries before science was able to confirm this fact. And what to make of the coincidence of our physicists' discovery of a black hole at the center of our galaxy and the Mayan belief in a great black hole in the very same spot?
Now, there are several implications which we need to take into account with this one. First of all, a black hole is of course a singularity, and second, the symbolism has worked its way into Mayan mythology.
McKenna used this symbolism when he wrote, "Over millennia, the Maya observed the drama of the approach of Father Sun toward the vagina of Mother Sky, and though the cosmic event itself was calculated to occur many centuries in the future, the Maya made the future conjunction the anchor point of their machinery of cosmic timekeeping. Their myth chose our time as the quintessential moment of creation. A year before his own death, McKenna wrote how the world was perhaps not meant to end, but was to be born on December 21, 2012. This coincides with John Major Jenkins' conclusion that the ancient Maya understood something about the nature of the cosmos and the spiritual evolution of humanity that has gone unrecognized in our own worldview. This understanding involves our alignment with the center of our galaxy, our cosmic center and source, and identifies 2012 AD as a time of tremendous transformation and opportunity for spiritual growth, a transition from one world age to another.
Some years ago, Daniel Brinkley had a near-death experience. He was speaking on the telephone, I think it was 1975, and a huge bolt of lightning hit the telephone line and threw his body physically up to the ceiling, and then it crashed to the floor, and from that point on he was out of body. In the ambulance, he was floating above his body still, and then a tunnel opened up in front of him, and he went down the tunnel into a really bright light and was confronted by a bright silver being, and then he relived, he had a life recall experience, after which he was taken to see a group of these 12 beings surrounding a 13th, and then they each presented him in turn a screen on which he saw scenes from the future. And there are over 300 scenes from the future between 1975 and 2012 to 2014 was when the series ended. And those scenes included things like the fall of the Berlin Wall and the explosion of the nuclear power plant at Chernobyl, well before they actually occurred. And by year 2000, there was only about 17 of these huge world events left to occur that he'd foreseen back in 1975. And they finish off with something that he says is a window of opportunity for mankind to evolve, but it will also be, there'll be a geomagnetic reversal of the Earth between 2012 and 2014, and that previous to that the Earth changes will escalate, but that this will not just be a series of catastrophes, but will also be the side effects of this window of opportunity, an evolutionary jump for mankind. And this sounds remarkably like what a Siberian geologist called Alexei Dmitriev has come up with. Dmitriev has shown that there are changes not only on planet Earth with our meteorological changes that we're seeing now, but that these are actually happening throughout the whole system, solar system, on every planet in the solar system. Atmospheric and magnetic changes are happening. And he's also said that there's a build-up of interstellar plasma on the edge of the heliosphere. So Dmitriev says that we are, like Daniel Brinkley says, that we're heading into a new energetic area of space, and this is a sort of plasma cloud of charged magnetized plasma, and that this is seeping through from the edge of the heliosphere to the sun, where it is causing increased solar activity, and that then it's coming out on the solar equatorial plane and affecting all the planets and causing all these changes. Dmitriev also predicts, like Brinkley, that it will result in a geomagnetic reversal and an encounter with something beyond our normal third dimensional experience. He says it was causing a spontaneous mass evolution of mankind as we now know it. And it correlates so closely to what was seen by Brinkley that I think it's very significant.
So on December 21st, 2012, in the region where the Sun is aligning with the heart of the Milky Way, known as the galactic center, we will encounter a feature known as the Dark Rift. This is known to be interstellar dust. In the Mayan creation mythology, this is called the Xibalba Bay, the road to the underworld.
Now this is where a lot of pieces begin to fall into place. First of all, the 9 gods are said to return. And for one thing, for this to work, for them to return, we need to have a hero. A hero will pierce through our dimension and this underworld, and what will happen is that he will create a gateway, a stargate, a doorway, something whereby the two worlds connect. And the hero is all about sacrifice. He will sacrifice himself, he will go onto this voyage, and through this voyage the gods will be able to return. So what we're looking for, what is needed, is a new hero.
So the Hopi people who live in Arizona, they say that we are in the 4th world and that we're currently approaching the transition to a 5th world. Now the Hopi, it's thought that they were descended from the Anasazi people, who in turn descended from the Aztecs, and the Hopi's system of a series of worlds is similar to that which the Aztecs believed in, except the Aztecs said we were in the 5th, what they called a sun rather than a world, the 5th sun approaching the 6th sun, and to the Hopis we're in the 4th world approaching the 5th world. But they saw them as past eras that ended in destruction, but that there's an evolutionary progression at each time a new world is created.
Twyla Nitch, a Seneca elder of the Wolf clan, inherited the teachings